FearScape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Hey everybody, it's Josh Rutledge, your co-host for FearScape Paranormal Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support us more, please head over to our website, FearScapePodcast.com. There you can click on store and browse some really awesome t-shirts and maybe pick a couple up, or even go to our Patreon page and see how you can support us monthly. We love bringing you awesome content just as much as you like listening to it. Enjoy the show.
Coming to you from nowhere, a suburb of parts unknown. Join Stefan and Lance, the Misters of the Dark, as they review all things horror with their latest victim. I mean guest. New episodes of Misters of the Dark drop Mondays on the FearScape Media Network.
Hello, I'm so glad you could join us. I hope you brought your blanket to hide under. The spooky crew is going to discuss things and events from other realms. Ghosts, cryptids, aliens. Be sure to hold your blanket extra tight as the boys take you deep into the FearScape.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another frightening and mysterious episode of FearScape Paranormal Podcast here on the FearScape Media Network. I am your host, Stefan Gerhard, and I am joined, as always, by the man with the plan and the swifty right hand, Mr. Josh Rutledge.
Why, thank you. I am swift when I'm shifting through gears with my manual transmission.
You are, and when you smack me in the back of the head when I've said something inappropriate in front of your mother. So yeah, you're good at that. We got a really cool episode today. We've got a Gettin Spooky episode with, I would say, America's leading cryptozoologist expert, Mr. Ken Gerhard, not my cousin. Like I told Keith.
I mean, he could be way down the line.
Yeah, he could be different spelling. But when Keith first talked to us about this guy, which we knew who he was, but he's like, he hits us up. He's like, oh, do you want me to reach out to Ken Gerhard? And I said, oh no, man, he's my cousin. He's like, are you serious? Oh my God, I didn't even know that, man. I'm so sorry. He's going on and on and on. I go, Keith, I'm just joking. It's spelled different. He's like, you son of a bitch, owl. So,
dag nabbit.
Dag nabbit. Josh, though, I know that earlier today you were talking to me about something that you just wish people would do. In terms of our podcast.
Oh yeah. You had to jog my memory because it seems like I say it so much that just should be second nature by now. But yeah, I mean, I would really love it if people would just go out there in any place that you can, review the show, and share it and like it. And just tell all your friends about it. When you all get together on your Zoom COVID meetings and talk about your week, say, hey, have you guys heard of FearScape Paranormal Podcast? It's the greatest thing in podcasting.
It is indeed. And in fact, we have a contest for our episode for Ken Gerhard. He's got a book that he has given to us that he has signed, and we wanted to give away to one of our listeners. And so to do that, we wanted you guys to get out there and share the post that's either on the FearScape Media Network or on the FearScape podcast page or on Twitter or on Instagram, whichever one is sharing the episode. We want you to share out that episode, and you can hashtag crypto. I don't know what is it. Hashtag CryptoKen.
Yeah.
And if you hashtag CryptoKen, that way we can take a look and see who's done that. We'll choose one lucky winner. We'll reach out to you, and you'll get a signed copy of his book
which is The Essential Guide to Bigfoot.
Which is absolutely phenomenal. We have copies as well. Very, very cool book. So, I mean, this dude knows it all.
And I know we have listeners that are international. I mean, we'll even make arrangements to ship internationally.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll take care of you. And let me tell you, Josh was saying if you like and review, that can help your chances too. I'm just saying. So yeah, man, if you throw a review in there as well, could help your chances. But yeah, remember, we're going to be doing this for probably about a week. So once the next episode drops, next Wednesday, that's when the contest will end.
Yep.
Because, we've got a week to market these things. So you got a week. Remember, hashtag crypto, that's CRYPTOKEN, crypto Ken. So, and not cryptocurrency.
No.
So I wanted to use crypto, not cryptid, because I don't want you guys to think Ken is a Bigfoot. So,
right.
But anyway, so yeah, crypto Ken. Anyways, but yeah, we got a fun episode. Like, share, review, all that stuff. But before we get to our sweet Gettin Spooky with Ken, let's move into our segments for this week so we can get rolling. And the first one, as usual, is the psychic word of the week.
And now, the psychic word of the week.
All right, so you guys know we have our book here, the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary from June G. Bletzer, Ph.D. Rest in peace, honey bear. We flip through her pages until we psychically just feel, okay, this is a good spot to stop. I've landed on the very first page of the letter K, and the first phrase here that I see is called Kung Healer, and that's K-U-N-G, healer, so like Kung Fu, but the term comes from the Kalahari Desert. What it says is a Kung healer is an accomplished psychic who cures disease by treating the patient's lifestyle, attitudes, and their resulting physical effects through the knowledge of NUM. And so that's actually N/UM energy. I'm not familiar with that. But it says the healer forces the NUM energy at the base of his spine to boil up and travel up the spine to the head by constant excited tribal dancing. When he reaches a state of transcendence or painful ecstasy, his psychic powers are accelerated. So he can diagnose the conditions causing the disease and then channel healing energies to the patient. So very, very interesting. So I'm going to see if NUM is in here real quick because I'm curious. It sounds like some other things that I'm into.
Well, I Googled it.
Did you?
I'm reading.
What's a Google?
I'm reading through. Yeah, this is plug for Google.
Yeah, I got NUM here too.
Okay,
so.
Go for it.
Well, because what's Miss Bletzer have to say? So she says that NUM is an energy in the body that can be used for healing, concentrated at the pit of the stomach and the base of the spine. This energy is heated to a boiling point to make it rise up the spine by singing, rhythmic dancing, and desire of the tribe to heal the sick. Healer must have thoughts that are nothing in the head to make the energy useful. When it reaches its head, it can be used to heal members of the tribe. Sometimes healer loses control because the overwhelming power, but the tribe members step in to rescue, and after healer drinks cool water, he is ready to proceed. So it seems a lot similar to kind of like chi energy, but with this idea that it can take over.
Well, what's interesting was when I Googled NUM, options came up for NUM chi, NUM energy, NUM chi energy. So I wonder if they're interchangeable.
Yeah, it very much could be. Very, very, very much could be. So yeah, that's Kung. Is that what it's called?
Kung Healer.
Kung Healer, that's right. So this is the actual person here. And it does, I will say this, the reason it's at the beginning of the chapter is because it has one of those, it's got an exclamation point at the front of it. So that's very interesting. I don't know what the importance of that is. So, but yeah, very, very interesting. A very interesting form of healing. And I look at it, I'm like, with things like Reiki out there, I don't want to get myself hurt or get lost or have boiling energy running through me when I can just use the Reiki that exists.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess I wonder if it's like almost like you're focusing.
I don't know. It sounded a lot like Shuriken. Like some Street Fighter 2.
I guess for me it sounded more like you're a lens
Okay, yeah.
And you're focusing the energy.
Right.
And spreading it through the group.
Yeah, that's true, too.
And so it's not really like the NUM does say that it's an internal energy, but, isn't like all the energy that makes up the universe is all...
Right, which is what Reiki is,
right.
essentially. It's like, but it's... Reiki, you don't use your own personal energy, but, this Kung energy could be a separate form as well. So
yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. Very, very interesting.
If anybody happens to be some type of a shaman, would like to let us know.
Yeah, you out there in the Kalahari Desert, man? That's what I want. Not the calamari, because that's not a desert. That's an ocean.
Yeah, and just for anybody who might be thinking, NUM is not Eminem.
Yeah, and it's not Nexium either.
Yeah.
That's a cult. All right, so let's go ahead and move right into spooky news because I got 2 stories this week. 2, and the first one you'll understand why. All right, so for spooky news this week, like I said, I got 2 stories, and I was only going to do one, but this one came across my desk at the last minute, and it's just too coincidental. So if you recall last week's episode where we had a woman in Russia that was in the morgue and woke up and was not dead, well, something similar happened again.
Okay.
So this time I think it was in America. Okay, so the headline reads, "Dead woman found to be breathing at Detroit funeral home."
Interesting.
So Detroit, hey! So it says a young woman who was declared dead at her suburban Detroit home opened her eyes at a funeral home right as she was about to be embalmed.
Wow.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Well, at least that's when they caught it.
Yeah. So Jeffrey Feiger, I'm not sure who he is, but Jeffrey Feiger says they would have begun draining her blood, to be very, very frank about it, had she not woke up. The Southfield Fire Department acknowledged it was involved in a bizarre set of events Sunday that began when a medical crew was summoned to a home where a 20-year-old woman was unresponsive. Paramedics tried to revive her for 30 minutes and even consulted an emergency room doctor, the department said. The doctor then pronounced the patient deceased based upon medical information provided from the scene. The Oakland County Medical Examiner's Office said the body could be released to the family without an autopsy, according to the fire department. But then came a startling discovery at the James H. Cole Funeral Home in Detroit. The woman was still alive more than an hour later. Our staff confirmed she was breathing and called an emergency medical crew, the funeral home said. Feiger, who was hired by the family, identified the woman as Tamisha Beauchamp. Or Beecham. They were about to embalm her, which is most frightening had she not opened her eyes. The funeral home was unzipping the body bag, literally, and that's what happened to Tamisha, and seeing her alive with her eyes open, Feiger said. My heart is so heavy. Someone pronounced my child dead, and she's not even dead. This was Beecham's mother, Erica Lattimore. Southfield said it's conducting an internal investigation, but insisted that the fire and police departments did indeed follow procedures correctly. So,
well, I think this is a story for the testament of Detroit. A lot of people thought it was dead, but it opened its eyes.
It did, and it is back full fury with its mother standing behind it. Ooh, Lordy. But yeah, so 2 in a row.
Yeah.
That's the reason I grabbed it and wanted to use it again, because this is 2 in a row within a week.
Makes me wonder if, people are trying weird foods at home or something.
I'm just like the crazy evangelicals out there, they might see this as the dead rising from the grave, and it's Armageddon, y'all. Get your guns.
We need Bruce Willis to get on a spaceship and plant a nuclear weapon inside of a comet.
Yes, detailed and legit. You do what you gotta do, man. But yeah, stay in your church, okay? This ain't the real. This ain't it. Anyways, so the main story I wanted to talk about is definitely an odd one. So anyways, my second story is the main one that I wanted to talk about. It's a creepy, weird one.
Because the last one wasn't?
Right. Well, this is a little more UAP kind of related. Matt Tiller even sent this to me, but I had already gotten wind of it. But The headline reads, and you may have heard this already, airline pilots landing at LAX report a guy in a jetpack flying alongside of them. Even in an era in which Congress wants to openly investigate UFOs, a guy flying alongside an airliner over Los Angeles in a jetpack is still bonkers. Now, I've seen a number of other articles, but I like this guy. He does more of an editorial on it, and it's funny. And this comes from thedrive.com. But he says, as if 2020 couldn't get any weirder, airline pilots landing at Los Angeles International Airport on Sunday, August 30th, reported seeing a guy in a jetpack flying about 300 yards off their wing while on final approach to the bustling airport. But what makes the reports even stranger is that the airliners were descending through 3,000 feet when jetpack guy showed up next to them. Fox 11 broke the story and has the air traffic control audio clips, which you can listen to. Matt even sent me a video where it has some stuff on there. You can listen. There's no video to see, but you can hear the audio. But their exchanges went a little something like this. American Flight 1997 says, Tower, American 1997, we just passed a guy in a jetpack. Tower says, American 1997, okay, thank you. Were they off to your left or to your right? American Flight 97 says, off to the left side, maybe 300 yards or so, about our altitude. Fox 11 reports that a SkyWest pilot confirmed the sighting. SkyWest Flight says, we just saw the guy passing by us in a jetpack. Then the Tower alerted an incoming JetBlue flight to the reported hazard. Tower says, JetBlue 23, use caution. A guy in a jetpack has been reported 300 yards south of the LA final at about 3,000 feet, 10-mile final. JetBlue says, we heard that, and we're definitely looking. And another pilot in another plane chimes in and says, only in LA.
We know the really cool thing about this is I didn't know that we had ever broken jetpack technology.
Well, and they talk about that. So it says there are a number of new jetpack-like designs that are remarkably capable, but all have very limited range, and most have only very low altitude flight envelopes. Ives Jetman Rossi's winged jetpack is definitely capable of such a feat, but his flights have always occurred under highly controlled and well-coordinated circumstances and in sanitized airspace. They are also very high-profile in nature and require a mothership to launch from, such as a helicopter or at least a very high point to jump from. And it goes on and talking about that stuff, but needless to say, this shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So there are, of course, a lot of people on the ufology side that wonder, what exactly did they see? Was it a guy in a jetpack?
Well, yeah.
They're not sure. I mean, to me, it kind of sounds like Mothman, for example. I mean, being up that high and things like that, and there's only one person that's capable of doing that.
You said 3,000 feet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to have oxygen.
I don't know what that would be. My little brother's not here to answer that, but yeah, regardless, like, that's crazy. And I really hope we get to interview these pilots to see. I mean, this one, it was 300 feet away from him, so it's like, I want to know, what was this dude wearing? Did it look like a guy?
Right. Was it at nighttime?
I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Well, just the reason I'm asking is because I'm wondering, like, at nighttime, to identify a guy in a jetpack, you would have only seen probably the flames coming out of the jetpack.
Yeah.
Unless he's wearing like a bright red, orange jumpsuit or something.
I don't see whether or not it was night or day. This doesn't say. But still.
Yeah, but it just makes me wonder if it was during the day or at least like maybe daylight hours, then they probably got a really good look at whatever it was.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because it doesn't talk about lights or anything like that, and other stories suggest other things, like social media stunts and things like that, but this has been out a couple days now and no one's come forward yet. So if it was a social media stunt, you'd think they'd want to come out with it.
It was a fan recreating the Rocketeer.
Yeah, and they talk about that a lot too, but one of the videos Tiller sent me, I don't know if you're familiar with the Flying Bruja video that came out years ago, where it looks like someone sitting essentially on a broomstick flying, but it's a very slow flight. It's black. It's in Mexico, which is why they called it the Bruja, and it's very similar. And there are jetpacks that supposedly are very similar to that. I wonder,
because I also know that people, and I'm not necessarily trying to discredit whoever, but I also know that people sometimes make things, weird things, to put drones inside of.
Right. You can see there that it looks like he's standing on something.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is very similar to the Bruja video. But, yeah, I don't know.
But, I mean, it's like, you know, did they take a dummy and dress
Strap
it
yeah.
and make it look like it's flying, but really it's, like, held up by a drone?
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that the season finale of Unidentified did for me. You know, with those drones and the lights and the way they were able to sync up and just look like, I mean, essentially in the dark, look like the ship from Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah.
I mean, that, once again, it makes me go, oh, stop doing things that skeptics can say it's not it, you know? So, but anyways, we'll move on from that. Very interesting. I'm sure we're going to hear more about Jetpack Guy.
Did you say we'll move on from that?
We'll move on from that. Yeah, we'll move on from that into our UAP sighting of the week. All right, so you guys know we pull out our UFO or UAP sighting of the week. We find one. We on New Fork again this week?
Yep.
right,
I mean,
so what
it's
do
just an abundance of information.
Great.
So.
Well, what do we got?
Yeah, so this happened on August 23rd in London, Ontario.
I've been there. That's pretty.
So, and this is, I mean, pretty shocking. The summary is a large flock of chevron-shaped UFOs appear after a comet sighting.
Oh, wow.
So let's get
this was the comment.
Yep.
At approximately 11 p.m. on the night of August 23rd, 2020, amateur astronomers viewing Jupiter witnessed a comet with a fiery trail to the left of Saturn, traveling downward in Saturn's direction. About a minute after the comet, 3 boomerang-shaped objects appeared traveling from the comet's direction toward the north. They were a dull orange color, slightly glowing. They flew together, but not in unison. Approximately 15 minutes later, ending at 11:03, a second sighting was made by 2 of the 3 witnesses. There were an estimate of 50 to 100 of the same boomerang-shaped UFOs traveling in the same direction as the previous 3. The UFOs made 2 scattered V formations while traveling. Ending the sighting, 2 of the UFOs from the large group traveled south, almost directly above the witnesses, moving much slower, and then turned back north and sped away, disappearing into the sky. One of the 3 witnesses saw a large hexagon-shaped object with no glow or light, leading the large group of UFOs. Hexagon-shaped object with no glow or light, leading the large group.
So, excuse my language, but holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And, dude, I swear this is like the 4th or 5th in a row that's been chevron-shaped. Boomerang.
Yeah, well, and this is recent. I mean, this is, you know, and I don't think this was the big comet because that was like when we were in Point Pleasant.
Yeah.
And that was much earlier than August 23rd.
Yeah.
But so this is just a comet that because there's always
there's always stuff going on, especially places you can see the skies.
But yeah, I mean this is pretty shocking, and you've got more than one witness reporting it.
I mean, this feels like a small fleet.
Yeah. Well, so the skeptic in me, and I can hear skeptics, if you're listening, probably saying the same. The skeptic maybe thinks geese because of the V formation.
Sure.
But the thing that kind of gets me is that some of them turn a different direction and then like turn around and fly back. Like geese just don't do that. They typically fly in the same general direction, and the only time they go away from that path is if they need to get to a body of water.
Well, and you know, geese aren't solid all the way across in bright orange.
True.
and then the hexagon-shaped one.
Yeah.
Like to me, that automatically says, you've got these points in this hexagon. I mean, I wonder how wide the chevrons were. Is that where they're, shot from essentially? Is like they've got these landing bays where they can go into the corners.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. Maybe that could explain the fleet. Like they all come from that ship. So.
Makes me wonder if like it's kind of like a kite tail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like something like it pulls behind it too. I don't know for what purpose.
I mean, it could be power.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Who knows? I don't know. Very, very good sighting.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we've been seeing a lot of chevron-shaped boomerang ones. So
yeah, it's definitely a new shape. I mean, the last season of Unidentified even talked about the new chevron shape.
The new chevron shape, because it went from triangles to chevrons. So,
right.
I don't know. Keep your eyes to the skies, guys, and let's go ahead and move right into creepy catch-up.
Creepy catch-up. Creepy catch-up. Creepy catch-up. Creepy catch-up. Y'all, it's creepy.
All right, creepy catch-up, where we talk about creepy things that have happened to us over the last week since we last met.
I'll go first because I really don't have anything.
Okay.
I have it's like a funny dream that I had last night, but life is so hectic right now with my kids being in homeschool and all this kind of stuff. It's just I feel unbalanced.
Right.
So
I also feel unbalanced.
So mine is last night I had 2 dreams and both of them were funny. So in one dream, me and you were in like I don't know where we were. We were like in a downtown setting and we were driving around at night, and you got a call from Keith, and he said, "Hey man, when the man in black shows up, don't talk to him." And we're like,
"Don't worry."
And we're like, "What is he talking about?" And right about that time, this guy walks up, dressed like Dark Helmet from Spaceballs, and he's like, "Give me all your money." And we're like, "No!" And we're like, he's like speed away. So that was the first one.
That's ridiculous.
I know. The second one was we had somehow arranged to have an interview with Elon Musk for 20 minutes. And so in the interview, we talked to him about his theories around are we being visited, about his comments about the possibility that we're all living in a simulation. Like, it was just a really what you would probably talk to Elon Musk about in this type of show. But it was just really cool that we're like interviewing Elon Musk for 20 minutes, and then he was like, "Okay, guys, we're running out of time." And so he was like, "Okay," you said, "Well, okay, we'll let you go then." And he's like, "No, that's okay. We can keep going." So then we just...
And then he jetpacks out of there past LAX.
Yeah, exactly. So that was my only 2 things.
So I had some night hags again this week. First time in a while. Two nights in a row. So the first one, I mean, they were both weird. In a lot of ways, the first one was scarier. But so I was asleep. I fell asleep on the couch watching TV. And I woke up. And, this... I've said before that there's a lot of correlation to night hag happenings when you sleep on your back. And I don't tend to sleep on my back often unless I'm sleeping in a recliner or something along those lines, or if I've reclined my bed, I have one of those beds, things like that, or I end up on my back. Well, anyways, I'm laying there and I woke up. I couldn't move. Same thing. And standing to my left and to my right, so my feet are sticking out on the recliner, there is a tall, dark figure with long arms on either side with the just dark red eyes, as usual. And so surprisingly, I remembered your words to say, well, maybe it's there to help me, not harm me.
Yeah.
So I couldn't move my lips. I couldn't move my head. So I thought I'll speak telepathically. And so I think I said, are you good? Or are you bad? Or are you trying to hurt me? Or are you here to help me? And then simultaneously, I hear 2 voices in my head say, what do you think? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm scared right now, but I'm not sure if I should trust you. The one on the left said, yes, you can absolutely trust me. Just don't trust him. and then reaches up and points to the guy next to him. And the guy next to him goes, "No, no, no, no. You should not trust him. He lies. I'm the one that you should trust." And I'm like, oh no, oh no, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you better figure out which one that you can trust, or we're going to start doing what we do. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, I'm scared, I can't move. And then they go, does this make it easier? And then they stepped towards each other and merged into one being. And I was like, no. Now I can't trust you, and I'm supposed to trust you at the same time. And I was able to, I don't know, blink or move or something, and they were gone, and I was kind of woke up. But I thought that was really creepy and really weird.
Well, so first of all, very cool that you interacted with your night hags.
Yeah, that's the first, for the most part.
I wonder how many people have actually had conversation with their night hags.
Yeah. I didn't hear anything. It was all in my head,
Yeah,
of course.
but still, one could argue it's all in your head anyways.
Right.
But it's still very cool. I was thinking about this. You have a history of sleep apnea, although you haven't had it since you had surgery.
Right.
Oftentimes people with sleep apnea don't get a lot of air in when they sleep on their backs.
Right.
So if you're suffering or dealing with sleep paralysis and you're sleeping on your back and you're not getting enough air into your system, it's very possible or even plausible that you are hallucinating.
For sure. Even then, that's the whole point. Sleep paralysis, a lot of times when you're waking up, your mind is still dreaming, so to speak, and you're having a waking dream,
right.
which is in essence a hallucination.
Right.
So,
but it's just to me it felt like a lot of the old Bugs Bunny cartoon where there was the devil on one shoulder.
Right. It kind of felt like that too, or in Buffy or something like that, where there's two Xanders and you got to figure out which one's the clone, which one's not. So the other one that I had was I was in my bed and I had woken up because my cat likes to sleep on my stomach if I'm on my back, and so I happened to be on my back. She was sleeping on my stomach. Well, that woke me up, but I couldn't move, and there at the edge of the bed was a different creature, much shorter, black, same difference though, black, red eyes and things like that. And I'm like, oh God, and I can't think because it really scared me on this one for some reason. This just felt different, and I got really, really scared. And I was trying to tell Leia, my cat, I was trying to mentally tell my cat to go attack the shadow, to get it. And it I look up at it and it shakes its head no. And then it reaches and it taps the head of my cat, and all of a sudden my cat has those big black eyes like the Black-Eyed Kids.
Yeah.
And then it opens its mouth super large and the noise comes out and I was like, what the hell, man? But it that tone put me back to sleep. And so that was weird.
Well, I've recently read that because I was curious. My daughter likes to terrorize both my cats, and so I was like, when should I worry about my cat? Wanting to
get revenge.
Yeah.
They
and
will
so
do that sometimes.
And so I was reading and it said that basically you can tell by the cat's eyes. Mm-hmm. If a cat's pupils are super big, then they're in hunt mode.
Yep.
And so that's when you know to leave your cat alone.
Yep.
So the fact that it touched your cat and they went to hunt mode means that your cat was in reactionary state.
But it filled the whole. It was a little different, but I know exactly what you mean. That's when I stopped messing with my other cat, Kylo. As soon as I see those pupils expand, I'm like, all right, sorry, dude.
Yeah, you're done.
So that's what I had for Creepy Catch Up. Interesting for that to be back this week and twice. But, like I said, I've been feeling unbalanced. I'm stressed about work and moving and all of that stuff. So
and you're sleeping on your back.
Yep. Don't do it. So that puts us here right at the ad break before we get into talking to Ken Gerhard. We got a great interview with him. So so make sure to stick around after the ad break and get ready. Here comes Ken Gerhard. FearScape Media Network is your new home for everything weird and enlightening. Check out podcasts and YouTube shows covering content from discussions on horror films to the paranormal to meditation. Find out more at FearScapeMedia.com.
Hey everyone, Josh here. Do you feel like mainstream options for things such as yoga, meditation, or documentaries and films meant to expand your mind are lacking? Have you heard of Gaia? Gaia is the largest resource of consciousness expanding videos. Both Stefan and I have watched several of the series, documentaries, and films available on topics such as the secret space program, channeling interdimensional beings, and alien encounters. We're just now exploring the over 8,000 films, shows, and classes available to stream on your favorite devices. To get your 10-day free trial of Gaia, go to FearScapePodcast.com/Gaia offer. Again, that's FearScapePodcast.com/GAIA offer.
All right, thank you guys for sticking around after the break. Like we said, we are going to be getting spooky here with Ken Gerhard, not my cousin, okay, though we should be. We look like brothers. But no, we have here cryptozoologist, just an all-around cool guy, author, TV guy, all kinds of stuff. Ken, thank you so much for coming on FearScape.
Well, good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me on your show, and it's definitely an honor and a pleasure to be here with you tonight. So excited to talk to you.
Yes, and we're excited to talk to you, man. We have been digging hard into the cryptid field lately, of late, and so we'd love to just get some answers from you towards the end about some stuff we've been messing with and
some
talking
theories,
some theories and things like that. But I know that our audience would like to, let's knock out the origin story, get it out of the way for people that don't know you. How did you get into all of this? Was there something that happened to you years ago or whatever that led you to get into this field?
Are you second cousin to Bigfoot? I mean, I just
No, I didn't have that epiphany that a lot of researchers have. That none of those life-changing events in terms of an encounter. It's really just been a lifelong passion of mine. And, what I always tell people is when I was growing up, I was, two of my loves as a kid were animals and creatures. My father was a forestry professor, so I spent a lot of time in the outdoors, and I had exotic pets like caiman alligators and things like that, snakes.
That's awesome.
And I also loved monsters, monster movies, Godzilla movies, and all that stuff. So when I first heard about cryptozoology, and I guess that wasn't a word I heard right away, but when I first learned about Bigfoot when I was a kid, about 8 or 9 years old, I mean, it was like, I was in heaven. I mean, here you had a monster that was also possibly an animal or a creature, and it was just kind of combined all those things. And my mother was a huge influence. She used to tell me about the Yeti and the Mothman and all these different, she really encouraged my interest in all that kind of stuff. But more importantly, she was a travel agent, and back when that was a thing. I don't know if it still is, but
it is, but it's not like it used to be.
She loved it too. She was very adventurous, and she honestly wanted me to be an archaeologist, but she took me all over the world. I got to camp along the Amazon River with primitive tribes. I hiked across Australian desert. We went to Africa, Asia, all these places. And by age 15, I was at Loch Ness in Scotland and attempting field research as a teenager with a movie camera and talking to locals and stuff. So I never planned this as a career path. It's just been a lifelong passion and interest of mine. And I just feel very blessed. I've had some amazing opportunities. Years ago, I started doing Bigfoot field research here in North America with different people, and I started writing books. And I got a lucky break and got onto the Travel Channel years ago and started doing TV shows too. So it's been a fun ride, and I love what I do.
Well, they say that anytime you can find something that you love to do, and to make it a career, that's always the best way to go. So
yeah, and I'll tell you what, man, we love your energy. You know, when we watch you on TV, and just the energy you put in your books and things like that, and having your background story explains a lot of that. That's so remarkable. You know, Josh and I both have a lifelong fascination of our respective things that we like as well. It just always seemed to be something we were interested in, with me with the occult and ghosts, and him with UFOs and things. And but yeah, I want to live vicariously through your childhood.
I made it to Canada once.
Yeah, I was like, I grew up in Toledo, so we went to Detroit a couple times.
Well, guys, one of the really exciting things for me these days, as I get older, is when I meet fans that are 8 years old, 9 years old, and they're, you know, into what I do, and they're writing me letters or drawing pictures of chupacabras for me. And, you know, I get to speak. I'm a volunteer at the San Antonio Zoo, and they let me talk to kids and classes, and I lead tours, and I do some high school lectures. So whenever I meet young people that are interested in cryptozoology, that's what really gets me excited, you know, because I can see myself in these young faces and their enthusiasm, and they're so knowledgeable these days, you know, with the internet and different TV shows. They already know there's back, you know, when I was a kid growing up, it was just, you know, you had to make a trip to the library every week and hope that you could find the one Bigfoot book or the one Loch Ness Monster book. Yep.
I asked my parents for a Bigfoot book one time, and they got me a book of Bigfoot the Monster Truck. So,
oh, boo. But yeah, that was me too. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, you know, we didn't have any air conditioning in the house. So I spent my summers in the library, and I just devoured that section of like paranormal, occult, you know, crypto stuff. I mean, I read every Bigfoot book, and like you, I was big into creature features and Godzilla and all that stuff. My brother's best friend, his sister did a lot of special effects makeup in Hollywood, and whenever she would come into town, she would show me pictures of like how these monsters would look before they put the makeup on and all this, and I learned a lot about that, which explains my love of horror. I also host a horror podcast. I love horror, so
I'm right there with you, man. Love horror movies,
especially creatures ones, man. I love monster movies. They're the best, especially the older ones. Oh, I love the older ones. I just finally watched Boggy Creek for the first time. That was great.
Really? You haven't seen The Legend of Boggy Creek before?
No,
wow.
Just saw it for the first time about 3 months ago, and I was in love.
Well, I got to tell you guys, I'm a little older than you are, but a lot of researchers of my age in my generation, we had the same influences, and one was The Legend of Boggy Creek, which came out in the 70s, and of course the original In Search of television show that Leonard Nimoy hosted.
Yep, I watched
and
that.
There was also a hit show when I was a kid growing up called The $6 Million Man, and there was some Bigfoot episodes on there. So all that stuff was kind of happening. And like you guys, I mean, cryptozoology has always been my first love, but I also read books about the Bermuda Triangle and UFOs and ghosts. I mean, I loved anything unexplained was of interest to me. So.
Yeah. Wasn't there like a kids show too that was like kind of like Shazam and all that stuff, but it was like a Sasquatch, like he would turn into a Sasquatch. It was that same like Saturday morning in the 70s. I can't think of what it's called.
I don't remember that one. I think I know what you're talking about. I loved Land of the Lost, and of course they had that little hairy hominid. I forget his name that ran around with them.
Well, probably along the same companies that did all of those, you know, all of those Saturday morning live action.
It wasn't Captain Kangaroo.
No. It was something, but yeah, it was like a guy that would turn into a Sasquatch, and that was his
I think I remember that one, but I guess I wasn't into that one as much for whatever reason, or maybe it was a little bit after my time. I don't know.
That
Captain
or it was
Caveman.
like, I think it was like I think it might have been like a smaller one. Like it was like you would see 3 different things each episode, and that was maybe one of them or something. Who knows? I don't know. I should know, but I don't.
You probably should. Yeah.
So now I'm going to look it up while we're talking, because that's what I do.
But so that's how you kind of got interested in it and into it. And I like Stefan said, I'm super jealous of all the traveling that you got to do and all the places you got to go and see. That's so awesome. Although I also am a chicken shit, so I probably wouldn't have done a lot of the things that that you did.
And I found it.
Guys, I got it. Sorry, go ahead.
It's Bigfoot and Wild Boy. It was one of those Croft super shows.
Okay, I think I've heard of that one.
Wild Boy.
All right,
Bigfoot Yeah, it was part of
Yeah.
the Croft Super Show. That's what it was. Dunzo.
All right. Yep, Sid Marty Croft. I was just
Oh,
going to
yeah.
say, I did get into a lot of trouble when I was a kid, especially when we went to the Amazon. I loved animals so much, and I remember we went out on a jungle hike one time, and I picked up a wild tarantula off the ground, and our guide knocked it out of my hand and chopped it up with a machete, and he scolded me and said, "Don't touch anything." And then a little while later, we were walking down the trail, and I saw this beautiful caterpillar. It was like this shaggy, woolly caterpillar with like green and purple and orange and all these colors. And I picked that up, and I thought, surely this, and apparently it was deadly poisonous. And he knocked that out of my hand
Yeah.
and chopped it up. So I was just, I don't know I guess I wasn't too smart if that was a little brazen, but
Lucky,
yeah,
though.
I almost got into trouble a few times like that. So.
Yeah, when we moved, we recently moved to a house that's more in the country than what we were living before, and there was this really cool looking caterpillar that my kids were interested in, and they wanted to touch it. I was like, nah, let's just wait and see. So I looked it up, and it turns out it has spiny barbs that like get embedded in your skin and poison it. So I was like, well, I'm glad we didn't touch that. So
Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah,
you
getting
never
in
know.
trouble
Some of
is
these
the way
things.
to go, man. You gotta get out there. Those are the type of people that, do things that we wouldn't, because
Right.
they're willing and able to take risks that other people
put yourself in harm's way
Yeah,
for the education of it.
for the education.
Sure. Yeah, that's how you learning experiences, right? And as
Right.
you go through life, the best way to learn is by screwing up. So
That's right.
Well, then I've learned a lot.
So, talking about, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your newest book. I know you've written a lot of books, but the newest book that we picked up is The Essential Guide to Bigfoot. We've got an autographed copy that we're going to be giving away as part of the promotion for this episode. So thanks for that.
thank you.
Yeah, but I just wanted, just curious as to, is it kind of a more of a passion to write these books to educate others, or is it also a little bit of self gratification to say that, I know this stuff and I'm going to put it out there for others to know as well?
Well, it's partially my livelihood. So thank you guys for your support, and anyone out there that purchases a copy of my book. That's kind of how I stay afloat. But I've never written a Bigfoot book, despite the fact that I'd researched and investigated Bigfoot for almost 40 years, all over North America, from Alaska to Florida to Central America. I've worked with all the top investigators in the field. I've interviewed hundreds of witnesses. So I had a lot of information about Bigfoot, but I just never really felt compelled to write a book. There's some really excellent books, reference books out there on the subject. But I think what really inspired me to write the newest book was that I'm just finding that there's just so much misinformation that's really being circulated out there because of the wondrous medium that we have here on the internet. Sadly, there's a lot of bad information out there, a lot of hoaxing, a lot of misunderstandings and misrepresentations. And I felt that it was very important to sort of push back against a lot of that and let people know, because a lot of people are interested in the subject of Bigfoot, but they need to understand that the reality of the evidence, what evidence has been found. They need to understand that there have been decades of research that's been done by a lot of dedicated people that have spent decades, lifetimes looking for this creature, and they have to understand that there is a lot of hoaxing and a lot of a lot of falsehoods out there. So I just wanted people that are truly, genuinely interested in the subject to have the most accurate information. And it's not just my opinion. Some of it is, and a lot of it is my personal research. But I try to also build a consensus opinion, if you will, borrowing from all of the top investigators in the field. And I interviewed, in fact, about a dozen to maybe 18 of the top investigators in the world, people that have spent their whole lives and are really, look at this scientifically. And I tried to, there are a lot of things we don't agree on, but there are a lot of things that we all do agree on. And those were the things I tried to bring together to sort of, build this archetype for people. So, what does Bigfoot really look like? How big is it? How many are there? Population size? What are their behavior patterns? Things like that. The history, of sightings and legends and native traditions and a lot of that stuff. So it's a primer, but even a lot of my experienced veteran Bigfooter friends have found little nuggets of information, kernels of information in the book that they were like, wow, I never heard this before. And
That's
so I was
cool.
able to kind of dig up some things as well that were kind of cool.
Yeah.
Lesser known things.
I recently came across a newspaper clipping that somebody had found from like I don't remember where it was, some newspaper, but it was like 1876 where someone was reporting a tall gorilla across the road or something like that. And, somebody had proposed that maybe that was a Sasquatch sighting that was misinterpreted as a gorilla.
Mm-hmm. Well, I told you where we lived in Campbellsville, Kentucky, I used to work in the library, and we were going through the archived newspapers, and we found 2 sightings in 1898 of Yeti along Green River from 1898, some things like that. So every time we went out to like Green River Lake State Park and stuff, we'd always be like, be on the lookout. Yeah. There's Yeti coming. But that's what I was going to say is I know you had talked about what's the population things, but what about there's this possibility that there's different versions or subspecies, where in terms of Yeti and versus a Sasquatch versus other things like that. How do you feel about all of that?
No, that's a great question. And it's something that's been discussed in the Bigfoot field for years, because there are different types of physical descriptions that you get from place to place. So I tend to err on the more conservative side typically when looking at these things and speculating about them. So for example, Dr. Grover Krantz, who was a physical anthropologist who became one of the first scientists actively involved in Bigfoot research back in the 60s and 70s, he had a good saying, which was, if you go to the scientific community at large and tell them there's a species of unknown prehistoric hominid running around North America, you're going to have a tough time convincing them. If you then try to tell them that there's 3 or 4 different kinds or species of unknown relic hominids running around, you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. They'll never believe you. It's highly improbable that Bigfoot exists in the first place. So then if you start delineating that and saying, well, there's actually a whole, family tree of different species. But the way that I interpret it is that, you do have, in the animal kingdom, you do have diversity within a species. For example, you have many species like hominids ourselves are dimorphic, meaning that the male and the female of the species have different characteristics. The males, for example, in the primate world, males are typically bigger than females, at least 15% bigger, sometimes 50% bigger.
Right.
You also have differences, when animals are juveniles, and sometimes they're smaller and they grow into them, a larger, different looking type of creature. But I think another thing to consider is that, you potentially do have different subspecies. For example, a Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon or California, Northern California, lives in a completely different habitat than a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch in Florida, which is called a skunk ape. That's the local name down there, or even a Bigfoot where you guys are at.
Right.
These habitats are different, and these different species, these populations, breeding populations, are separated by hundreds or thousands of miles. So the genetic variations are different. So because of adaptation and all these other reasons, there are scientific reasons why sometimes a Bigfoot in a swamp might, breed and adapt and look different than a Bigfoot in the coniferous forests of the Pacific Northwest. So that could be part of it. And to underscore that point, you guys have heard of course, everyone has heard of a mountain lion, a puma, also known as a cougar. It's it's the biggest cat in North America. What a lot of people don't know is that there's actually 18 different subspecies of pumas. There are pumas all the way from Alaska to South America. And they have slightly genetic differences because of the different genetic breeding populations. So they're all pumas, but a puma in Colorado looks vastly different than a Florida panther or puma. So,
for sure.
Now, one last thing I want to say is that I do dedicate a chapter in my new book to something called Littlefoot. As I've investigated Bigfoot throughout North America and Central America, I've spoken to a lot of Native people, from the Native American people of Alaska to the Ojibwe people of North America, the Maya people of Central America. All of these different Native traditions talk about sightings of little furry man-like creatures that are not Bigfoots. They're much smaller. They're only about 3 feet tall, 4 feet tall, little hairy dwarfs. And while you could say that maybe some of those are juvenile Bigfoots, little Bigfoots, the traditions describe them as entire races or civilizations of little people, little hairy people.
Yes.
And they have a number of different names: Hachesitehi, Awakule, Anukins, Duende. I mean, if you go all over North America, you'll find different Native traditions about these little people. They're always covered in hair. So I do speculate in the book that there could be possibly 2 different versions: a Bigfoot, a big one, and a Littlefoot, a little short version, a pygmy-sized version, or a dwarf version. So again, it's all speculation, but there does seem to be some evidence that there might be at least 2 different types, if you will.
Yeah.
And in fact, the Yeti of the Himalaya, there are at least 2 or 3 different types of Yetis that are described by the Sherpa people in the Himalaya. So one is a pygmy, one is a giant Bigfoot, and one's in between. So.
Yeah, I mean that fits. I mean, you think of, my immediate thought is bears in general. I mean, a Kodiak bear versus a polar bear versus a black bear.
There you go.
A brown bear. I mean, so many different
versus,
depending on where you go.
Panda bear.
Yeah, so yeah. I mean, it's like there are so many different there. That's why it just boggles my mind when anyone even thinks that that's odd that there would be different kinds.
Well, and what really boggles my mind is the fact that we find new species of birds, insects, reptiles by the thousands every year. New species we didn't know: fish, dolphins, all sharks, all the time. Finding a new species. So why would it not stand the reason that there are other species that we haven't found yet?
Yep.
Sure. I'm right there with you. There are 5,000 new species are described every year by scientists. Most of those, as you said, are smaller, but every once in a while there's something large and remarkable that's found. There was a new species of orangutan described in 2017. There was a 250-pound tapir, which is a large animal, very large animal from South America, was described in 2013. The okapi, the Komodo dragon, those were all discovered in the last century. So there are large animals are still discovered from time to time.
Well, and what gets me, and it's something that we've been kind of digging around in for the last, probably 6 or 7 months, is, we only live on like the top surface of the Earth, and then the Earth is thousands of kilometers, wide. And so it makes you wonder what else is living underground that we're not aware of.
Or deep in the ocean, Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely the ocean.
We talked about not so long ago about a story about the moon and Mars having these large lava tunnels where these lava flows have basically carved out the Earth underneath Mars and the moon. And, I know we have a lot of lava flow and have had a lot of lava flow on the Earth. So what makes you think that there might not be, or that you can't say that there might be these huge cavernous areas under the Earth that who knows what's living in?
I mean, I've been in a number of lava tubes when I lived in New Mexico that just kept going and going and going that we never even saw the back of. And I'm like, we're not even scratching the surface.
Right.
And there's so much, even in Kentucky, where we've got Mammoth Cave and all these cave systems.
Oh, yeah.
They said they're pretty sure they've only discovered like 10%.
10% of
Yeah, Kentucky has some amazing cave systems, no doubt. Some of the best in North America. So you're right. There's a lot of potential there.
So I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on, something that I seem to hear a lot of when I hear people talk about Sasquatch and those types of things, or even other cryptids in general, is that they're very animalistic. That is to say that they're acting on instinct alone and there's no intelligence per se. What would your thoughts be on that possibility that just because they don't communicate the same way we do, that doesn't mean they're not intelligent? Look at dolphins, for example.
Well, I work a lot with animals at the zoo and stuff, and what I tell people is that all animals are incredibly intelligent. I mean, look at an octopus. An octopus is a mollusk, so it's basically related to a snail, but it has a complex brain that fires about 500 million neurons. So I mean, octopuses, and you guys have probably seen videos of this, they can solve problems. Like they've put puzzles and jars in front of octopuses, and they'll look at it, study it, and figure out how. I mean, so that's a freaking snail, right? They can. Right. So all animals are smarter than I think we give them credit for. Agreed. But in terms of Bigfoot, and I read about this in the book, I honestly think that Bigfoot is a highly intelligent species, not as intelligent as we are, but for example, maybe as intelligent or more intelligent than the other great apes like gorillas and chimps, which are pretty darn smart. And I think that it recognizes that we are a huge threat, that we are essentially its direct competition and perhaps its greatest threat. And so Bigfoot, I think, has adapted behaviors specifically to avoid contact with humans. I think that's why the majority of Bigfoot reports that you read about, when someone encounters a Bigfoot in the woods, it's not typically a confrontational thing. It's like the Bigfoot turns and walks away quickly or disappears into the brush. I think they genuinely don't want any contact with us, and I think that they're intelligent enough to realize, that we are dangerous to them. So essentially, they're as afraid of us or more afraid of us than we are of them.
Well, I mean, think about it here. I mean, we live in Kentucky. You step outside of Louisville and you go on somebody's property, guess what's going to happen? You know what I mean? And I don't begrudge a Sasquatch for doing the same thing. For me, coming into their home, their territory, I would be cautious too. And I would either step away from something that I don't understand. I mean, they could look at us as if we're the cryptids, and step away. But I mean, like I said, you step onto somebody's property over in Shelby County, you're gonna get a shotgun blast across your head. So I get it.
And maybe they have been shot at, or there have been accounts of that. But I mean, if you look at the other hominids that were around with humans, up until 30, 40,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, our species, basically drove all of those other species to extinction. The Neanderthals, the Denisovans, Homo floresiensis, Homo luzonensis. We know that there were a whole bunch of other types of species of Homo that were around about 50,000 years ago, and we're the last ones. We're the ones that are here, Homo sapiens. So it's a fair conjecture that we essentially drove all of those other species to extinction. And I mean, not to mention, and I'm not trying to be on a soapbox here, but think about all of the other types of species that humans have driven to extinction in recent centuries.
Oh yeah,
hundreds, if not thousands.
I mean, especially when
we're dangerous.
I would say a good 99% probably of all the species that have gone exist were because of us.
I was thinking the other day the movie Independence Day, the one with Will Smith, and there's a scene where Bill Pullman, I think, is the president, and he gets a glimpse of what the aliens are doing and stuff, and he says they're like locusts. They move from planet to planet, consume all the resources, and then move on to the next area. I'm like, that's humans.
Yeah, we do the same thing.
We just consume resources.
There's a metaphor there.
How do you think we've populated the world?
Right,
like
exactly.
We have?
Yeah,
and some of them just want to be kept alone, and I think that goes for most creatures or things that may exist that we don't know. They just want to be left alone, which your idea of the Littlefoot fits to a lot of things we've heard before. That idea of these smaller creatures living in caves and tend to a lot of times be near caves and things like that. Now we seem to be about 3 feet tall, and there's some people that say that they're the Greys, the aliens, the Greys, that they're not actually aliens, they're ultra terrestrials, and things like that. But yes,
there's a lot of animals that are born hairless and later get hair.
Yeah.
So why couldn't you have a gray alien that later becomes a Bigfoot?
Right.
I don't know.
And we always look at things on a human scale. Who's not to say that these creatures don't live 300-400 years at a time, So who knows?
We don't know. It's really
last 100 years.
Ultimately, it's all speculation, and that's why when people when people try to refer to me or someone in my field as an expert, you know, I know it's a cliche, but there are no experts.
Yeah.
We really don't know. It's all speculation. But, you know, I think when you use speculation, you can, you know, be as informed as possible, and you can try to speculate within the natural laws of, or, you know, the zoological world here in the field of cryptozoology. Things have to make sense, you know, from a zoological perspective. There has to be a food source. They have to live somewhere. They have to breed. You know, all of these laws pertain to all animal species. So, I mean, that's kind of the paradigm that I try to stay within.
Right, and that's one of the reasons I think that not only us, but a lot of other people respect your work as well, because there are a number of cryptozoologists in the field that do simply just focus on them as monsters and create their own things, whereas, you know, you come at it from a zoologist perspective, and that if they're here, they're animals too, so they live within the laws that exist here. And how does that work? What can we look at how a pattern of orangutan work, could that fit to the pattern we think we're seeing here? And that's something that, like I said, gives you a lot of respect, and why you're considered an expert, or I guess just a fountain of very good information.
Well, I appreciate that, but ultimately it also creates a lot of conflict, because I try to be respectful of other people's opinions, because everyone's entitled to an opinion. Mm-hmm. And as I said, we really don't know. I'm a very open-minded person, but I do run across a lot of people that have theories that are just not, you know, palpable in my opinion, in terms of being based in reality. And, you know, I have a lot of friends and a lot of love for people in the paranormal community and the UFO communities. Those people have a certain type of bias, because they were, you know, non-physical spirit forms and entities and, you know, kind of stuff. So that's kind of the prism that they look at things through. So they oftentimes they want to cast Bigfoot within that same, you know, prism or filter, and say, well, you know, Bigfoot's interdimensional and it's a spirit. But if you look at the evidence, there's no evidence of that. It's just a theory based on the fact that we haven't found them. That's what it boils down to. We haven't been able to find them, so they're going through portals to another dimension. Maybe, but I mean, the evidence that I've looked at for decades doesn't indicate that at all. It just indicates that they're really rare, and they're very intelligent and good at being avoided or avoiding us. You know, that they're not easy to find.
Well, for example, you know, we say that a lot of skeptics, that's what they'll say. Well, they obviously can't be real because they're so big, we'd see them. But I mean, you know, you look at serial killer Ed Kemper, the co-ed killer. He was 6'9" and was able to slink around like a cat and like just do these things and hide and like just hide himself and not be seen and all kinds of things like that. If this species of Sasquatch or whatever is intelligent, you know, especially when it's the color of the leaves and the trees and things like that. Yeah. Here's Ed Kemper, 6'9", fat. He's a fat guy too. It wasn't like he was like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was a big fat guy with an ugly mustache and big glasses, and he still hid himself. It's remarkable. So he can do it. Sasquatch can.
He's the Sasquatch of serial killers.
Oh no, I don't know. Ed Kemper's weird, but
yeah. So I mean,
it's crazy.
And
good point though.
Yeah.
And the same token, one of the arguments that I've heard a lot of is that, you know, something that's that big would have to eat a lot, and so like whole herds of sheep would go missing or something like that. But you're also assuming that it's carnivorous,
right.
B, that it comes out of its wherever to eat. You know, it could eat something underground, or I don't know. It could even
mushrooms underground.
It could be a hunter-gatherer. Who knows? So,
yeah.
Well, in the book, I speculate that Bigfoot is a generalist omnivore, which is exactly what a bear is. Right. And interestingly enough, you find a lot of Bigfoot activity or reports in the same areas where you have a lot of bear populations. So I think the bears and Bigfoot are in a way, they fill the same ecological niche, and they're probably in competition. But there are accounts of Bigfoot eating everything from grass to berries to insects, small animals, deer, fish, mussels. I mean, they scavenge. I mean, they're opportunistic. So they're big animals, you're right. But if you're an omnivore and you can eat anything, then there's a lot of food out there. That you're right. I mean, if you were a hyper carnivore like a cat and all you can eat is meat, then that limits you. But if you're like a bear and you can eat whatever's in front of you, which is what I think Bigfoot does, then yes, it could support a population. And talking about population, and again, this is all speculation, but I honestly think that in terms of population, we're looking at anywhere from 1,500 to 4,000 Bigfoots spread across all of the continent of North America, from Alaska to the East Coast to the South. That makes it an extremely rare animal. In other words, there's at least 100 or maybe as many as 1,000 bears for every Bigfoot. That's how rare Bigfoot is. So if you look at it in terms of that, then there are enough of them to sustain and have a breed population. But you're 100 times more likely to run into a bear than a Bigfoot. That's my opinion.
Yeah, especially in the Smoky Mountains.
Well, we're talking about going to the Smoky Mountains in October. Maybe we'll run into a Bigfoot.
Well, that or a bear, you never know. Yeah. Everybody seems to see one when they're out there.
You never know. I was just there a month ago.
Yeah,
I was at a Bigfoot conference in Gatlinburg, and we had a bear running around the parking lot of the hotel. So, I mean, you're right. There are a lot of bears there.
They are everywhere. They're everywhere because they know everybody's got food everywhere and all that.
I got a funny story about that. So when I'm on honeymoon, and we drove up to Klingman's Dome. We went to Gatlinburg for my honeymoon. We drove up to Klingman's Dome, and we were coming back down, and there was this bear with 3 cubs crossing the road. And of course, I stopped to let them cross the road. My wife's like, "Get out, and I'll take your picture with them."
People do that though,
Yeah.
man. They do that, and then they wonder why they get attacked.
Well, they get mauled by a bear. I mean, black bears are not as aggressive as others, but still, I don't want to get out with a mama bear and 3 cubs, and so
especially cubs.
Yeah, like you said, if they're used to humans, they're more dangerous. But a black bear is essentially a giant raccoon, is what it is, a 250-pound raccoon. But even a raccoon can be pretty nasty if you ever run across an aggressive raccoon in your garbage down. They'll mess with you. So you're right. Better err on the side of caution. I always respect nature. That's what I tell people is, just have a healthy respect for every animal. One of my best friends, who's also a zoologist, he and I have a joke about any animal will f your ass, and we talk about that all the time, even a squirrel. If it wants to, a squirrel could f up your ass. I mean, don't piss off the squirrel if you can avoid it, because if it wants to.
No, don't let one get in your house. It goes nuts.
Well, we just got a new kitten, and my daughter wants to play with it all the time, and so she was trying to pick it up, and so she was maneuvering so she could get it into a corner, and I was like, "Don't back the animal into a corner."
So one of the cool things you talked about is getting to do a lot of cool TV stuff and history and stuff like that. But I did notice when checking out your IMDb that we did have you on one episode of Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, I've been on the lowest rated episode of Ancient Aliens ever. I was on that one.
Oh. I just thought that was really
the episode that no one's seen. I was on deep sea creatures. It was not deep sea creatures, so I talk about like the kraken and sea serpents, and of course, they kind of. I give a lot of the background on a lot of those aquatic cryptids, and then towards the end of the show, they try to kind of spin it into, there's an alien connection between these deep sea creatures that the aliens are somehow responsible for it, because I get it. That's Ancient Aliens. That's what they do.
Yeah.
But I've got a kind of a funny story related to that. There was another episode of Ancient Aliens that was going to be about reports of living dinosaurs.
Ooh.
Okay, so you guys knew this, but that's a thing that there are people around the world have reported living types of dinosaurs. So one of the producers for Aliens called me, and they wanted to use me on that episode, and they said, "Yeah, we want you to talk about these reports of living dinosaurs, and what can you offer, or what can you contribute in terms of suggesting that these living dinosaurs have actually been genetically engineered by aliens, and that's why we have reports of living dinosaurs, because the aliens are genetically engineering them, kind of like Jurassic Park." And I said, no, I'm not on board with that at all. I don't think that has anything to do with it. And ultimately, I never heard back from them after that. So I guess they moved it on and found somebody
that would agree with them.
That was maybe a little bit. So I get it. I do a lot of television. There are certain things that they're looking for from episode to episode, but I think aliens could be a thing. Like I said, I'm open-minded, and I've seen a UFO myself, and who knows? They're being out there, but to suggest that aliens are behind a lot of these cryptid reports, I think that could be a bit of a stretch. But,
well, let's talk about one in particular, which is Mothman, because that one is one that is very, very contested. We just went to Point Pleasant a few weeks ago, and
cool.
Did our own just having fun and read stuff. But that's something that is there is a huge debate over whether or not it is a cryptid, or whether or not it is an alien, or whether or not it is a human in some sort of suit. I know you've done some research and stuff on Mothman. What are your conclusions on that?
Yeah, I actually wrote a book called Encounters with Flying Humanoids, and it looks at Mothman and also creatures like Mothman around the world, because a lot of people don't realize it is a global phenomenon.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Like Mothman have been reported all over the place, and literally those legends go back thousands of years. You can go back to the ancient Assyrians and the Babylonians, Sumerians. They had things like Mothman in their mythologies. So that is one. I don't really think of Mothman as a cryptid, because again, a cryptid has to fit within the paradigm of zoology.
Agreed.
And based on the eyewitness descriptions and the behavioral descriptions of Mothman, it is not of this earth. I mean, it doesn't match with anything we know in the natural world. Its behavior is hyper aggressive. There's a lot of weird stuff attached to Mothman. There were a lot of UFO reports when Mothman was being sighted in 66 and 67. There were a lot of UFO sightings, poltergeist activity, Men in Black. So I honestly think that Mothman is more of a supernatural type thing. If you want to look at it as an apparition, or some people say it's demonic or interdimensional, that I'll sign off on that with regards to Mothman, because it's not a zoological phenomenon. It is a weird creature. I've interviewed dozens of credible eyewitnesses who've had encounters with creatures like the Mothman, and they're very sincere. But it's just too weird and too far out. But I think there is something behind it. I think again, it's more of a sort of a metaphysical construct. But I definitely think it's something beyond our understanding that we just can't really even grasp what Mothman is or where it comes from.
Yeah, I agree. We pretty much agree with that summation as well. I mean, we're big fans of John Keel and those things, and we agree with that as well. We just did an episode because we went to Point Pleasant. We did an episode on Mothman, which makes it fresh. But we did have a guy yell at us and tell us that we were wrong. Yeah. That there was scat and that there was all kinds of stuff like in these sightings. And I'm like, nothing I've ever come across. But he did. He got real mad when we said that it wasn't a cryptid. So
maybe he makes his living off of selling Mothman as a cryptid shirt.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I disagree. I know some folks that have found some mutilated animal carcasses out there at the TNT area.
Yeah.
So I never heard of scat. That's a new one.
Yeah, this guy said there was like footprints and scat and different things.
Everybody poops, man. There's a book about it. I mean, there's so if Mothman's interdimensional and he can't get back to his dimension to use his toilet, he's got to go.
He unbuttons the flap on the back.
It's like the old timey pajamas. Yeah. It just flips down.
But Josh, he has all those concrete igloos over there in the TNT area. Couldn't he use one of those as an outhouse? I mean, come on, man.
He could.
Yeah, just right in the center.
Yeah, just right.
Because there's a drain. There's a drain in each one. So
just kick it to the drain.
Just eat a lot of berries. It'll go.
Yeah, just go right. Oh my goodness. You never know what you're going to hear on FearScape. So. Oh man. So thinking about the books that you've written, what you might got or have coming down the pipeline, what's your favorite topic that you've written about? Do you have one?
Oh man, it's typically, this is a disingenuous answer, but it's typically whatever I'm working on at the moment. I get totally wrapped up and absorbed in whatever subject I'm investigating at the time. So it changes quite a bit. But what I'm pretty much known for the field of cryptozoology more than anything else is my research in my writing about giant winged cryptids. In addition to Mothman, there are things called thunderbirds. Based on Native American legends, and I know that they've named a sports car and a fine wine after these cryptids. But there are actually modern sightings of giant birds, and I mean giant birds with wings.
That's like the Quetzalcoatl, or how do you say that? Is that correct?
Well, you're close. That's actually a flying reptile. So we'll talk about that too. A giant bird is, got feathers and a beak, and that's a bird. And there are reports of those, giant airplane-sized birds. Right. But there are also reports, and I get a lot of reports also of things like Quetzalcoatlus, which is a giant pterodactyl, a flying reptile. So I get reports of both, and they're both kind of referred to as thunderbirds, even though the like I said, are pterodactyls or reptiles, not birds. But
yeah, I didn't know the difference.
Maybe we're splitting hairs, but yeah, they're all archosaurs. So they all descended from the dinosaurs and the crocodiles and stuff. So they have some relationships, but yeah. So I've written books about that, and in all my books I usually have a chapter or two because I get sightings all the time. Whenever anyone sees a winged cryptid, I'm kind of the go-to guy, so I get a lot of those reports. And there's not nearly as much evidence compared to Bigfoot. I mean, you don't have any even controversial photos, or no one's found a giant egg or a nest or any physical evidence. So, and the sightings are not as common. So it's more obscure, but I mean, still, I think there is something there to investigate. I mean, there's certainly a lot of eyewitnesses that have sworn they've seen these things. So,
well, it's because they're all out on Monster Island with Rodan and Godzilla and stuff like that hiding out there. Keith Age, he seems to think everything's a damn owl.
Yeah, a giant owl, a horned owl or something. Yeah, so that's what Mothman was.
Everything we did, we make fun of him all the time. But yeah, I think we're getting to where we're wrapping up. But I wanted to just see if you had anything in the pipeline coming up that you were wanting to kind of share some info about, or wanted to push anything, because we're very, very interested in what you got coming soon.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Sorry the time flew by so fast. I had some great questions. I really enjoyed talking to you both. Currently, I'm working on a new book. I'm trying to get it out by the holidays. I'm not really yet releasing what it's about because I want to surprise everyone.
Right.
But it is one of the major cryptids, one of the top, rocks or cryptids like Bigfoot. So I think people will be very excited about it. And in addition to that, I'm working on some new TV shows. They don't really let me talk about that too much until they're about to air. But keep an eye out for me on some of those your favorite networks or shows about unexplained phenomenon, different things. Mm-hmm. And I sadly, like many people, I missed out on a lot of. I do a lot of lectures and appearances at events around the country, and most of those have been canceled this year for understandable reasons. But I am going to be speaking at the Texas Bigfoot Conference in October, and we don't know how many people will show up, but they're going to do a 50% capacity. Cool. We're going to space everybody out, and we'll all have masks on and stuff. But
of course,
if there's anyone that's looking for a good Bigfoot conference, the Texas Bigfoot Conference is entering its 21st year. It's got, always got top-notch speakers. Other than me, the other people are pretty top-notch. Me, not so much, but I do what I can. But that's pretty much it at the moment. Just, like everyone else, just trying to, socially distance and hope that this, that we all get through this pretty quick and we can kind of return to some level of normalcy.
Absolutely. And yeah, we definitely have some friends and listeners in Texas, so hopefully we'll get some of those guys to get out there.
And I guess they can find anything they want to know about you at kengerhard.com. Is that right?
Yep, KenGerhard.com. I also have an Amazon author page if anyone wants to check out my books.
Okay.
And I also have a YouTube channel, and I've started making little short 2 to 3 minute videos that I produce that, where I explain different types of cryptids like Sasquatch and Thunderbird, Littlefoot, and all these things that we talk about. So you can check that out as well.
Yep,
Yeah,
and to our listeners, you guys will be able to find those links either in the show post or just on separate posts within the network page or the FearScape page. And even we can even put the book page onto our website there.
Yep.
So.
We'll get your stuff out there. We'll let everybody know where to find you.
Hell yeah, for sure.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much, man. This has been an absolute pleasure. I love laughing and got lots of things to laugh about now. But we appreciate your candidness and your openness and your willingness to talk to us, man. And we hope we can get talking to you again sometime. All right, great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
you,
Ken.
Yeah.
You are just a wealth of knowledge, my friend. Make sure to check out all of his books and everything on Amazon.com or wherever you can find his books,
We just really Google Ken Gerhard and it comes up the first hit, and he's got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and make sure to check out all the stuff when he was on History Channel and all those other shows. So, but yeah, again, thank you so much, and thanks to Keith Age for hooking us up with a new good friend. So we appreciate that big time. So before we get out of here, of course, I want to get into our listener story this week. We had one submitted via the website.
Yep.
And I loved it so much, I decided to not get a performer, that I wanted to be the one to do it this week. So this comes from a listener all the way in the state of Oregon. His name is David Brinkman. And so he sent this to us via the website. So remember, guys, you can go to FearScapePodcast.com and click
on report a sighting.
Submit or report a sighting.
See, if you see sighting, click on it.
Yeah, click on that. So anyways, this is what David Brinkman had to say, and it's a pretty remarkable story.
What's up, Spooky Crew? My name is David Brinkman, and I live in a small town in Oregon called Happy Hollow. This story happened to me just a few months ago. I've only recently gotten into the paranormal, and this is why. I guess it takes something happening to you to stop thinking everyone is making stuff up. Anyway, this happened in March, right at the start of everyone quarantining for COVID-19. I live alone and was already bored out of my mind, so I decided to take my ATV out and go for a ride in the woods. If you have ever been in the Pacific Northwest, you know how thick these woods can be. So I'm driving around an area I have been in my whole life up along Adler Creek near my property. Well, it started getting late and I was cold and hungry, but I was a bit of a ways away from home, so I decided to stop and eat some beef jerky and provisions I had in my backpack. I stopped somewhere in the woods I had never been, but I wasn't worried. I had a compass and GPS. I found a beautiful area where the sun was shining through the trees, creating dark orange rays and deep dark shadows. I sat on a fallen tree and began eating and just taking in the woods when all of a sudden I felt hands wrap around my throat. My first thought was some homeless person or something trying to rob me for my food and my ATV. I tried pulling the fingers off of my throat but couldn't get them off. They were way too strong. And I'm 6 feet tall and 275 pounds, so I should have been able to get this person off of me. So I put all my strength into rocking backwards and then flinging my whole body forward and onto the ground as to flip this person off of me. So I did just that. And I felt the weight of them go over me, and then I heard a slight scream from my attacker as I lunged them forward. And this is where it gets weird, guys. I felt the hands leave my throat. I felt the wind from the person being flung over me. I felt their shoes catch the back of my head. But I saw no person. What I did see was the leaves on the ground crunch, scatter, and indent, but I saw no form hit the ground. I heard a loud, "Ugh," as they hit the ground, but again, I saw no form, no nothing. I didn't even bother to investigate. I hopped over that fallen tree, hopped onto my ATV, leaving my provisions behind, and zoomed away from there as fast as my ATV could go and did not look back. Days later, I decided to go find my backpack and investigate. I made sure to bring my pistol this time. I retraced my steps, or I guess my drive, and could not find that clearing in the woods anywhere. that clearing that I found during the experience. I had never seen it before that day and thought that was weird, as I knew those woods back and forth, but I never found it again. I've been multiple times since then looking for it. However, I will tell you this. 2 weeks ago, I went out back to clean up the ATV and take it for a spin, and there sitting on top of it was my backpack. I'm telling you, it looked 50 years old. It was all faded and tore up, and of course nothing was inside. I feel like I'm losing my mind. A friend of mine from Kentucky suggested that I listen to your show and hear other people's stories, and I have. And listening to your show, I've realized others have unexplained stuff too, so I don't feel so alone. I just wish I knew what the hell it was. Thanks for listening, guys.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, when this one came in, you and I had some conversation around it. And, I immediately went to guy in an invisible suit.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a theory that I have anyway, is that, there's...
Yeah, guy or
thing.
UT or something.
Thing in an invisible suit.
Yeah, which fits your kind of, almost like your ghost theory that they could be UTs or ETs or humans
something
in some
like
sort of camo.
cloaking suit.
Yeah, cloaking suit. So, wow, David, that's... I'll tell you what, I sure the heck wouldn't go ATVing in those woods anymore. Especially here's a guy who's lived there his whole life.
Right.
And finds a spot he didn't know. That also makes me wonder, I'm like, did you like hit a different dimension or something? I don't know.
Well, I'm also curious, and he didn't leave a way for us to contact him, but he said he had a GPS with him.
Yeah.
I wonder if he pinged a GPS location, if he could navigate back specifically to that same GPS location.
Probably didn't think about it. I wouldn't have.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got a guy trying to choke you.
Yeah, you're just getting out of there.
Right.
So, but yeah, thanks for sharing that, David. And everybody else, make sure to send in those stories, fearscapepodcast@gmail.com, or on the website, or anywhere that you know that we're active, even on the network page or our Facebook page.
Yep.
But yeah, let's go ahead and wrap things up and get out of here. Make sure to go to fearscapemedia.com to check out all of our other podcasts and all that jazz.
Yep. And just a reminder, store, PayPal, anything that you can do to help us out really helps us to be able to still bring you great content, to get these awesome guests, to do offers for shares and things like the book and everything else. So.
Yep. And don't forget the contest. So, make sure to share the post. And hashtag CryptoKen. That's hashtag CryptoKen. And within a week, we'll be sending a lucky listener a signed autographed copy of Ken's book. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been FearScape Paranormal Podcast. And I have been Stefan. I will catch you on the flip side.
This has been Josh. The truth is out there.
And remember, folks, hold those blankets extra tight, because things tend to get spooky when you're listening to FearScape. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
I'm so glad you were able to join us for that horrifying discussion. I hope they didn't frighten you too much. Tune in next week for even more research into the nightmarish and haunting creeps and spooks that we tell ourselves don't exist, but we know they do. Make sure you have your blankets, that you hold them extra tight. Next time on FearScape.